level of River Seine. And now let's set off. Please invite our camera shooter to shoot this scene. This is the St. Alexander Bridge. And you can also see the water level of the Seine. And in front of us is the Opera House. The water level of the Seine keeps on rising, and the climate organization in France, and they set out the flood alert. And on 25th of January, the water level reached 5.47 meters, and on 26th, it reached 5.58 meters high. And it is predicted that it will reach 6 meters. And yesterday, at the evening, the climate organization released the latest report that the water level won't be above 6 meters. They predict the peak level will reach 5.59 meters. So you see the water level won't be higher than that of 2016. And now we have passed the Alexander Bridge, and we are going along the river. As we can see the water level of the Seine, and these vessels and cruise can show the water level. With the camera, you can see the water level of River Seine. The tourists who came to Paris will definitely choose River Seine as a master place. And tourists would like to take the cruise to enjoy the beautiful scenery. But this time, because of the rising water level, all the cruises are shut down. They are all stopped on the ports. And let's go along this road. Teng Teng, today you are joining our live stream. As far as I know, in the year 2016, you were also in Paris. Do you have any memory or impression of that year's flood? And comparing to this year's flood, what's the difference? It was the year before last year. I was also studying in Paris. It was impressive. You mentioned that the peak level was above 6 meters, but this year, according to the authority, the peak level won't be as high as that of 2016. At that time, many traffic lines are stopped, and also the subways and many artworks of Louvre Museum and Orsay Museum were moved to higher places. And then you see in that year, the cruise are also stopped. And you see the Alexander statue in that year. In 2010, the water level reached the elbow of the statue, but in 2016, it was the highest. In 2016, the water level was 8 meters higher than the normal levels, but this year it seems the condition will be better. Here, let's see the further place. This is the Alexander III Bridge, and that's the Eiffel Tower. So you see there are still many tourists here. The tourism industry seems to be not so affected. Later we will interview some tourists to ask about their impression. And let's go along this road. I remember when we go along the Alexander III Bridge, we will pass by a very famous place. There was a famous movie shot here, and it's really picturesque. Normally, on the both river banks of the Seine, the tourists can go down from the ladders by the bank, but now you see it's all blocked. Yesterday, the police for France told us the peak level of this time will appear tonight or tomorrow. That's 5.59 meters. It won't be as high as that of 2016. And in France history, the peak level of the water level can date back to 100 years ago. That was in 1910, and the water level was above 8 meters. And later on, the highest level was above 7 meters. We can see the riverbank of Seine. You see, these are all swollen. Here used to be the workstation of the government, and today is not a sunny day. But it's lucky that the rain stopped for 3 days. So with this trend of the weather, the water level may recede. And on the left front is the square. We are approaching the second bridge. There are still many tourists here. Let's continue going. Please have a look of this cruise. You can see with the rising water level, the wastes are also stuck. This time, the flood also brings pollution. And when the water recedes, the civil servant, the staff may need to clear the water. Today, on one hand, we want to show the flood to our viewers, and secondly, we go along the river and we introduce the scenic spots along the riverside to you. And you see the building with France flag above. It's the Senate of France, and it's on the left side of Seine. We are on the right side of Seine. We can stand in the center of one bridge later and see the water level on the center of the river. And now we are on the bridge of Concord, and we are moving from the right to the left side. And you can see the bridge is about 300 meters long, and we walked from the Alexander III Bridge to Concord Bridge. But we're still above River Seine, and you can still see the water level of River Seine. Okay, let's stop here. And let's have a look of the scenery. So you see, on this water level, the cruise cannot be moved. So they are stopped here. And we are heading for the direction of Louvre. Okay, let's stop on this Concord Bridge for a while, and you can see the weather.
前方信号卡的话，咱也没办法。这样。
This time, the collection of the Louvre Museum is not completely removed, but we know that the basement of another museum is closed, and it is estimated that the next week it will open to public again. We will move forward along the Seine River. I remember at the year 2016, during the flood time, since that was not a peak time for tourism, so I did not see a lot of, I did not see less tourists. I know that Paris went through lots of times of it's worsened. We know that it's very normal to rain in the winter in Paris. And we see that today it's cloudy. I remember at that time there was a time that there was no sun at all for 60 consecutive days, and that was very gloomy. I agree. I know that the north part of France, it's very cloudy. You cannot enjoy the sun very often, and I know that really sucks. You see, currently the water level has surpassed these contingency stairs. And currently we are at this bridge, and the water level here it's above the pillar. Let's move forward. According to my knowledge, yesterday, how do the visitors go to the Versailles Palace? Usually they would take the subway, Sea Line. However, due to the flood, you will have to choose another transportation option to visit that place. And you should try to avoid those flooded stations. And it is estimated that these stations will stop their service till the 31st. Previously, Sea Line is the major line in Paris. However, due to the bad weather, my colleague had to use 1 hour to go to office rather than the normal 30 minutes. And I remember in the year 2016, the traffic was also influenced. And all of the subway stations that will be easily affected by the flood were all affected. We can see that on the opposite side of this river is the Museum Orsay. Since this museum and the Louvre Museum is just on the opposite side of Seine River. Today, I didn't see too many civil servants working. And a few days before, I did see some of the civil servants doing some emergency work. And today is weekend. I do understand that. And I see that a lot of visitors or passengers will not go along the bank of River Seine for their own safety. That's true because since we went through this river bank, we didn't see a lot of civil servants or policemen or police persons. It suddenly occurred to me one piece of news in 2016 during the flood in Paris. I remember that there were still a lot of people went fishing along the river, and one inhabitant even caught one big fish. I also remember I once saw a person fishing along River Seine. Let's go forward. We are currently about to arrive in front of the museum roof, and we can see the water level here very clearly. You see that a lot of tourists pass through this stop, and they will stop here and take photos. We will also go down and experience the water level, because in 2016 during the flood of Paris, I didn't experience that one in person. This time I should go down and look at this water level myself. Do you have any sense how much of the water level have above the bank? I think it's 1.5 meter above. You mean that this water level should drop 1.5 meters at least to go to the normal level? Yes. How long did it take for the water level to drop down to the normal level in the year 2016? I didn't really count. I don't remember. I think it should be less than 2 weeks. We sincerely hope that the water level will drop to the normal soon. Usually the water in the river is it's very clear. Now we are going to pass a third bridge, and on the opposite side of this bridge is the Louvre Museum and Orsay Museum. Now we are going to Louvre Museum, and let's see how does the flood impact Louvre Museum. We see on the left side there is a policeman on duty. Yeah, there is a policeman on duty in the semi-basement there. Are there always policemen on duty? Yesterday, you went to Versailles. Did you see it got affected by the flood? Not really, because it's relatively further from the river. I remember previously there is a long queue in front of it. However, yesterday, the visitors' line was shorter.
So we are now at the gates of Louvre Museum. We still pray for the sunny day. And you see the weather broad prediction. Yesterday, we traveled back from the River Seine, and we talked about, if the rain continues, the water level will reach another historic high. And this year's water level actually is in the top 5 of the history. But the prediction puts it won't be higher than that of 2016. And now we are at the side gate of Louvre Museum. Because there are many cars, the noise is very loud. Teng, have you visited the Louvre Museum before? Yes, I've been here for 6 to 7 times. And this year you can see the tourists are not so many. I remember the Islamic hall in the basement. Do you remember there are many pieces there? Every time you enter the Islamic hall of the museum, you will find new pieces. I really hope this time the flood won't affect the treasure, the artworks, greatly. And yesterday we read a news that the Louvre Museum has already packed the artworks, and they are ready to move these artworks to higher places. And now we don't know how many artworks they've moved out. But we think this year's condition is better than that of 2016. There are numerous cherished and treasures artworks under the basement of the Louvre Museum. I was impressed by Islamic hall. I went there for 3 to 4 times. For the Chinese visitors, they don't often go to visit the Islamic hall. We are heading for the front gate of the Louvre Museum, and you see there are policemen and women everywhere. They are safeguarding, and they are ready for some emergencies. You know, since the terrorism attacks in 2016, there are safeguards and police persons at some crowded places like campus and scenic spots. But it's fortunate that France is still on alert and a peaceful condition. After some reform of the new president, how do you think? I think the police persons are experienced, they have expertise in safeguarding. Since the event in October in 2015, you see there are more police persons. They are safeguarding, but this still arise some influence on tourists' heart. People are wondering why they are here. are we on risk? Paris has many subway lines which can embody many tourists, including some refugees, tourists, etc. And Paris as the cultural and historical center of Europe, there are still worries about the security. When we were in China, we didn't have a clear idea about the security. But after I came to France, we experienced the gun, we experienced the terrorism events, and we deeply think that our country, China, is safer. And now we are at the exit of the garden, and it's the way to Louvre Museum. And you see there are tourists and they are taking photos at the square. And because many tourists, they plan for the travel months ahead of it, so they have no choice. Even if it's flooding, they still come. Now let's go to the Louvre Square. Let's find out if there are any Chinese visitors. These barriers are for queuing. You see, there are not many tourists, but in the past there were numerous visitors queuing here. This direction leads to Islamic Hall. We want to interview for some simple questions. Have you visited the museum? Not yet, because we haven't entered into the museum. Do you have plans? Yes, we are now heading for the museum. And for these 2 days, because of the rising water level of River Seine, do you feel disappointed? Yes, it's a pity. Have you been here? Yes, we've been here twice. Have fun. Thank you. So we can see they feel it's a great pity that they cannot take a cruise. I remember on the cruise, there were multiple language for the explanations of the scenery and history of France. We really hope the cruise trip can restart soon. The replacement of the cruise is the visiting bus. And now we are on the other side of Louvre Square. The tourists are in great order. So from their appearance, you can't see they are affected by the floods. Because French people are optimistic. Because I experienced this during the terrorism attacks, no matter the bigger ones or the small ones, you can feel they are optimistic. As I am a foreigner here, sometimes I'm really depressed, I'm worried about them. But themselves, they are positive, they are optimistic. They are not showing anxiety. Rather, we foreigners worry about them. We are anxious. We are anxious. And now we are on the other side of Louvre Square. That's the end of today's live streaming. I really thank you for joining us. We hope in future you can join us for more time. Thank you.